Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Yates with Julian, and we're going to teach you how to...
She's my mom.
Yes, we're going to teach you how to watercolor today. On this first day, we're just going to do the basics. So what you need is, what do they need doing?
You need a watercolor brush, paint palette, 2 cups of water, maybe some rubbing alcohol, a piece of paper,
The painting paper.
some crayons if you have some. But if you don't have one, just have this notebook and get a paper.
Okay, so what he means is if you took home your mixed media book, then use that, or use the paper, or you can rip a piece of paper out of your mixed media book. Yeah, I think that's it. So, oh, and salt, if you have it. Just regular old table salt.
Wait, where's ours?
It's in the kitchen. Okay, so we are going to start with the watercolor. And, whoa,
Whoa!
the lid just came off mine. Oh, look, I got 2 trays.
Oh!
Okay, so, what you want to do first is take your clean water, right? So this will be our clean water, and this other one, your second one's going to be your brush washing water. So don't dip dirty brushes into your clean water, all right? So what you want to do first is just dunk and get your paint activated. So you can go ahead and do this too, Julian.
Alright.
Like dunk your water. Oh, I don't need white. I don't even have white watercolor. It's pretty stupid. So what did your teacher say to do? Give it 2 drinks?
Yeah, that means do this, put your brush in the paint 2 times that you want to use, like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
what she
I have my kids just add some water to it so it's ready to go when we need it. Look at this dinky little brush that they gave with mine. What am I supposed to do with that? Okay,
Can you put it in all your colors?
Hmm?
You put it in all
I
your
added,
colors?
yeah, to most of it, but...
I only got to do 1.
So, first thing we'll talk about is how watercolor is very translucent, and that means see-through, okay? So, anything we have underneath our paint is going to show through. So you want to be really careful and think about that when you go to paint. So when we want to get different tones of things, you can like what's called glazing. You could glaze color over it. But we're going to start with the basics. So you just want to get your brush wet first, right? So you always get your brush wet first. Now just take some clean water, and you're just going to put some clean water on your paper. So what we're doing is called a wash. So we got wet paper.
We have to wash the paper.
So we got wet paper, and now pick one of your colors, Juju. So we got wet paper, now we're getting wet paint, and I'm getting purple, and we're just going to swipe. We're just going to swipe wet paint on wet paper, and that's called a wet on wet wash. No, just a little area, honey. Just a little area, Julian.
Okay.
Get what it's like to teach elementary school kids. So pick a color.
You get orange.
Yeah, now put it in just a little spot where you did all that.
Whoa,
Right, so
that's cool.
Yeah. So you can load more paint on there. The more paint you put on, the less
that's your clean.
Oops. The more paint you put on, the less transparent it'll be, therefore the brighter
it's
it
still
will
clean.
be.
It's still
No,
clean.
it's not.
It's
Here,
just
we'll
colored.
switch. Okay, Julian. So, in order to make a watercolor lighter, you're going to want to add...
paint's fading.
Okay, you need to quit interrupting me, honey.
Oh, I know.
In order to make a watercolor lighter, you add more water. Okay? So add more water to your paint.
Oh, that made a weird sound.
Adding more water to your paint makes your color lighter, therefore lightening the value. Okay?
Mine's
And,
already light.
I forgot to say you can tape your paper down to a board if you want to, that's fine. So that's wet on wet. Now if you don't water down your paper, you get what's called a wet on dry. And that's usually a little bit more bold because you don't have as much water you're working with. Okay, so wet on dry is usually more bold. Wet on wet is softer. Also, what you can do is you can do a color gradient. So this is called a gradient wash. And this, if you take a color into another color, that's called a variegated wash. So see how my purple and my red just kind of like blend into each other? You can also do it with like blue and red, or any primary and a secondary, or primary and a primary to get your secondary. Either way, but I'm just going to add some red in here, and I can make my own purple if I want to. That's fine. So just to review, wet on wet, and that was wet paper, wet paint. Wet on dry was wet paint, dry paper. This is a gradation wash, so you just add more water as you go. And this is a variegated wash, and that's where you have a variety of color. All right, so some fun things that we can do. While your paint, see how shiny the paper is? While your paint is shiny, while your water's shiny, or your paper rather, you can get a little bit of salt. Okay, so Julian, just take a pinch of salt, and you have to do this while you're wet. Okay, so just take a pinch of salt and just sprinkle it onto some places where you painted. And what will happen is
the salt will turn into the color.
The salt will soak up that color, won't it?
And turn into it.
And then it's going to end up looking like little snowflakes. But you don't need a lot. Don't like cover it. All right. So just a little tiny sprinkle. So that's one fun thing you can do. Another fun thing you can do is get that rubbing alcohol and a clean brush.
Dip it in there.
Yeah, but I'm not going to put it in. If this is the stuff you use for cuts, don't dip your paint in there. Get a little Dixie cup or a container or something. I'm just pouring it over my water container because that's fine. So I got a little bit of rubbing alcohol in there, and if I just tap my brush onto my paint, you want to try?
It will soak in. It will soak in.
Yeah, it like does this
paint.
cool like separation thing with your paint.
And it will become see-through.
Yeah. Some other stuff you can try.
Wait, I didn't. It won't work.
Well, because your paint, if your paint is too light, like Julian's is, it's not going to do anything. You need to have nice bold color for it to change. No, you don't. We can play later. Oh, excuse me. So the other thing you can do is get some crayons, and you can play with a little resist. You want a crayon, honey? So you can play with the little resist. So you can. Oh, my crayon's broken.
My crayon's broken.
So you can draw anything with your crayon,
but just
or
like
your crayon,
not on
as
the
some
paint.
people say.
Not like on the
Well, once you do that, then you can take some
paint.
paint. Yours is broken too. You can take your paint and paint right over the crayon, and since the crayon's made of wax, it's going to resist the watercolor and push it away. And so you can make some pretty cool designs. And you can even use white crayon. Or if you don't have any crayons, you can use a candle or anything that's made of wax. Not earwax though, Julian. So anything that's made of wax, and you can do a drawing and then paint over it, and it'll resist it. And you don't have to just do one color. You could do several colors. You could do several colors of crayons also. Something else fun you can try is like, say, a cotton ball or a tissue. Don't use toilet paper because, you know, we're rationing that right now. So you can like get something that's absorbent and kind of stamp out some areas.
Wow, that's cool. Look at mine.
Yeah, look at you. You can see on some of these areas the salt's already going to work and like soaking up some of that paint.
I'm gonna
Okay.
mix mine.
This cotton's not working as well as I thought it would, but that's okay. Tissues work good. Wait, let me grab a napkin.
Oops.
Whoops.
Oops. 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 Oops.
Jeez, you're
I'm
insane.
gonna use this one.
So you can grab a napkin and you can like crumple it into cool shapes. Some of this is already dry, so it's not working, but it's got to be nice
Can
wet
I use
paint.
the rubbing alcohol? Cause
Yeah.
I
You
need
gotta-
my paint.
Okay. So anyway, today I just want you to experiment, play around with these different techniques I talked about, and you didn't what? And then take a picture for me and post it on Canvas, and then tomorrow we'll get down to a project instead. Okay? Ready?
Hold on.
Ready?
Hold on.
Oh, it's dripping.
It's dripping. It's dripping. Whee!
All right. Bye, everybody. Stay safe. Keep your hands out of your head holes.
Keep your hands out of everywhere that you might get the coronavirus. Bye.
I forgot a few things. One is
Blooming and tapping.
blooming and tapping. So what you could do is you do that any kind of wash. It could be wet on wet. It could be
Wet on wet again.
wet on dry, whatever. But you just need a nice wet wash, and then you have too much water, Julian. So and then you take another color, let's say blue, right? And it's got to be nice and wet too. And then you just kind of tap. Oops, I got on your paper. You can just kind of tap that paint, and
Now I'm getting it.
yeah, there you go. And that paint, it's going to bloom, and it's called blooming because it's opening like a flower. Okay, so when you do it on a wet wash, it blooms, but then when you do tapping on dry paper, it's more like a splatter. Okay, and the other thing I forgot was after your paint's dry and your salt's all dry, and this might not be till the next day. You want to wipe off that salt off of your paper. And I forgot one thing that you guys need to do when you go to enter this on Canvas. I want you to label what you tried. So this will be upside down to you guys. So write like wet on, I put owl, wet on wet, you know, and then salting, and just kind of put your different, that is backwards. Okay, I don't know. I'll put a list of things you need to label for what techniques you used. And was that it, Julian? Label, tapping and blooming, wipe off your salt. I think that was it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Bye again. Bye. Actual bye.